Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli here. Welcome to a brand new edition of In the Shop. And we've got some special ones for you. For the next 6 In the Shop series, we're going to be focusing on the lures, the rods, the reels, and the techniques that worked in my brand new TV show, My World, which is airing on CBS Sports Monday nights, 9 p.m. We're going to start with one of my favorite episodes in this series, and it was fishing with professional football star and Super Bowl champion Lane Johnson from the Philadelphia Eagles. And I presented Lane with a challenge on my home body of water, which is the tidal Delaware River. But I didn't want to make it easy. Lane's a big dude. He's competitive. He's up for a big challenge. And for this challenge, we decided to do a challenge called the Philly with a bonus fish. And let me set up this challenge for you. Extremely difficult challenge in a limited amount of time. And this challenge was to catch a largemouth bass, a striped bass, a channel catfish, that's your Philly, and as a bonus to complete the challenge, we had to catch a northern snakehead, an exotic species. This was difficult. This was going to be a hard one, but we got it done, and there were 2 baits that really helped us secure the win in this challenge. You know, the first one was a bait that imitates shad and herring. And on the tidal Delaware River, largemouth and striped bass love to eat not only threadfin shad, but young of the year herring, silver minnows, that bait fish profile. So one of the key baits, and we caught both the largemouth and the striped bass on this lure, ended up being a vibrating jig. A white half-ounce vibrating jig. And when you look at that bait, it's basically a jig head attached to a metal blade with a skirt and a single hook. The thing about a bladed jig or a vibration jig is that it really is a hybrid lure. It's part jig, it's part crankbait, part spinnerbait, right? It hunts, it wobbles, it's pretty weedless and snagless. And of course, it has a great bait fish profile and look to it. But you know, a lipless vibration, a bladed jig, is not complete without a trailer. In fact, in my opinion, the trailer is what makes the bait. It finishes off the action, it completes the profile, and it really does dial it in to look like a shad or a herring. And in this one, we used one of my favorite Berkley power baits that I love to fish as a swim bait, but I love it even more as a trailer. And that is the Berkley power bait ripple shad. Oh man, this one is a sleeper. This comes in a lot of different sizes, from real little tiny 3-inch versions all the way up to big versions. But this is the size that I prefer on the back of a vibration jig, of a bladed jig. And this is the 4-inch ripple shad. You know, again, I'm always conscious, especially in these shows, that I want to mimic the forage. And in this one, we were imitating 3 to 5-inch shad and herring. Look at that thing. Look at the body shape. Look at the tail. Look at the color. This is the pearl white color, 4-inch. And it's the perfect complement on the back of this bladed jig. So basically, all I did, and when you look at that bait, one of the nice measure points for me, it has an eye and it has a little gill plate on it. By the way, this ripple shad's power bait, so it stinks, it smells, and that's added attraction. In the Delaware River and current, this was a big deal for us. So on that ripple shad, it's got an eye and a gill. When I'm using the ripple shad, power bait ripple shad as a trailer, I like to trim it back just a little bit. And I'll either bite it off or I'll take my scissors and I'll cut it right at the gill plate. It's a great mark when I'm using it as a trailer. It also makes a little flat spot for me when I'm threading it on. The other thing I want to do is when I thread that on, I always want to get it thread on so that that belly section, and you can see the belly's thinned out. It almost makes a V. I want that belly section to be on the bottom. So flat side on the top, belly side on the bottom, V of the bottom. And the other thing, when I'm rigging that Berkley Power Bait Ripple Shad on this vibration jig, I want that tail, right? Look at that tab tail. That's where the extra action is going to come. I want it facing the opposite way of the hook, right? So by rigging it belly side down, I'm getting maximum action out of the Ripple Shad. And all I'm going to do is I just pull the skirt down, I get my Ripple Shad, and I just thread it on. I want to keep it nice and straight. I bring it about 3/4 of the way out the bait. I bring it up on the keepers. And now look how I changed the profile of that bait, right? Now instead of just a jig with a skirt, I've got a solid body. It's about 3 to 4 inches, the same color, the same profile. Look, you know how shad are fat and then they get skinny at the tail? Look at that profile. Plus, it's that little extra action in the tail. And this is the bait that we use to successfully catch a largemouth and a striper. We targeted main river and creek mouth hard objects that were breaking the current. Our sweet spot for largemouth and striper ended up being the mouth of a creek around bridge pilings and rocks on the bank. And throwing that bait, I caught the largemouth, Lane caught the striper, and 2 of the 4 were already gone. So that was amazing. To wrap it up with that vibration jig with the Power Bait Ripple Shad, you know, the rods were important. And we threw those baits on a 7-foot medium action Abu Garcia Ike series rod. And that's the 7-foot medium power rod. One of the things with a vibrating jig, listen, this is important, guys. You don't want too stiff of a rod and you don't want too flimsy of a rod. So that Abu Garcia medium action Ike power rod has a moderate tip. Look at it. About 20% of that rod really has a flex. About 25-30% of that rod has a flex. That's important with a vibration jig. You want a little tip, but you also want a lot of backbone, right? It's got a big solid hook in it. So 7-foot medium power rod. And we paired that with a reel that has become a workhorse for me, whether I'm striper fishing or bass fishing or anything in between. And that is the Abu Garcia Revo MGX Extreme. It's the one with the cork handles. The thing I like about this reel, it's small, it's palmable, it fits nice in your hand, and best of all, it's 8:0 gear ratio. So I can take up line fast in that current. They would hit at it and come right toward you. You had to pick up current, right? You had to pick up line in that current. So that was key. Key bait for largemouth and striper. You know, when we got to the snakeheads and the catfish, things changed up for us because we went from fishing a more main river current pattern to running a pattern that is always good for catfish, and it's very good for exotics like snakehead. And that is fishing below a dam. Fishing below a dam. And we made a move up the Schuylkill River, and we targeted catfish and snakeheads that were living in the tail race of that dam, right? The overflow. A tail race area is always so good all year round because of cool water, current flow, oxygen, but most of all, a tail race is good because it attracts bait fish. And when we got up there, we were seeing a lot of snakeheads. We were seeing an occasional catfish. And when we started seeing them, there was one thing we knew we wanted to throw. And we knew it would be a lifesaver. And it is Berkeley Gulp. Berkeley Gulp. This stuff has become a staple for me in saltwater, but in freshwater, especially multi-species. Fish like catfish, snakeheads, eel, fish that use scent. That thing is awesome. And we decided to use the Berkeley Gulp 3-inch Gulp Alive minnow in a color called Watermelon Pearl. And the great thing about this Gulp is they come in these little Gulp Alive containers. It keeps it non-messy in your boat. And I want to grab one and show you how awesome these baits look. And remember what I said about the bait fish, right? Tons of little 2- and 3-inch bait fish up there at the falls, up there at that tail race. Look at that little 3-inch Gulp Alive minnow. Tell me that's not a dead imitator of it. In addition to the look, the shape, the action, Gulp is wicked. It stinks. It's got this Gulp liquid on it that is oozing scent. And those catfish and those snakeheads wanted a bait that smelled real. And we fished it on a drop shot. And I know a lot of you think, a drop shot for catfish and snakehead? But absolutely was a key. And we took that little 3-inch Gulp minnow and we just nose hooked it. We nose hooked it on a number 1 or a 1/0 drop shot hook. And when you nose hook that Gulp minnow, look at it. Look at the action it has. In that current below the tail race, that tail was shaking, the profile was right, and that scent was emitting off of that Gulp. We used just a little 1/4 ounce tungsten drop shot weight, about a 14 or 16 inch leader, and fishing this in and around where that water was flowing in, almost in the bubbles, right? The foam. I was able to catch a really nice 3 or 4 pound channel cat, and Lane was able to catch the bonus fish, a giant snakehead, probably a 7 or 8 pound snakehead. When Lane was holding it, it looked like it was this big. Let me tell you, it was a big one. Gulp is great when you want to attract fish to the bait. Current, dirty water, clear water, freshwater, saltwater. When scent becomes important, that Gulp's a lifesaver. We fished the Gulp on light line, and really part of the natural strategy to let that thing come back in the current. And we fished it on a really what I call an all-purpose spinning rod. We used the Abu Garcia Ike Series spinning rod, the 7-foot medium. We paired that with an Abu Garcia Ike Revo spinning reel in the 20 size. And last but not least, we used a braid to fluorocarbon line. We used 10-pound Berkeley X5 braid in white to a liter of 10-pound Berkeley Trilene 100% fluorocarbon. That little Gulp minnow really saved the day, and just in the nick of time, we were able to complete our challenge with a big catfish and a big snakehead. Man, it felt good to fish with Elaine, to fish with a Super Bowl champ, and win our challenge, and we did it thanks to that vibration jig with the ripple shad trailer and that Gulp minnow on a drop shot. That helped us complete our challenge. I hope you'd enjoyed this in the shop, detailing the baits, the techniques, and the rods and reels that we used in my new TV show, My World. Let me remind you, it comes on CBS Sports, Mondays at 9 p.m. Keep your eye out for the show. We got some more exciting episodes coming your way. We'll see you next week with another recap from My World right here in the shop. Bye.